Hey guys, as we wind down tonight, we step quietly through the lacquered gates of a palace where no one dares raise their voice. Yes. The sky is blue-black, the wind is cautious, and under the curved rooftops of the Joseon Dynasty, shadows move in practiced silence. Are one of them. A palace servant whose name is rarely spoken, whose footsteps must echo softer than breath. There are lanterns to light, fires to tend, corridors to sweep, and not a single mistake allowed. Everything is ritual, everything is slow, and everything is watched. You might not survive this one, at least not without folding something the wrong way. So, before you settle in, feel free to give the video a like and hit subscribe if you're truly enjoying the journey. You can also leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always a small wonder to see people tuning in from so many corners of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that gentle hum in the background, and together, let's ease into tonight's story. Your eyes open to darkness. Not the complete kind, no. This is a carefully managed darkness, the sort that exists in royal halls after curfew, lit only by faint lanterns and shaped by silence. You are lying on a straw-filled mat in a narrow side chamber of the inner court, your limbs stiff, your breath hesitant. You slept, or rather performed the ritual of lying down with your eyes closed. No one really sleeps here, not when the wind brushing the paper walls might be a superior's arrival. This is Changdeokgong Palace, or Gyeongbokgung, or one of the others. You don't get to choose. You belong to the palace now, just as the floor does, just as the paper screens do. You are Jensoon, an attendant, a whisperer of water pots, and bearer of late-night trays. You do not own a name, at least not here. You're referred to by your title, or perhaps by your chore, or by your mistake. When the sun sets, that's when your day begins. The nobles are asleep, or pretending to be, and that means the real work must happen. You must light the hallway lanterns, each at the correct height, with the wick trimmed precisely to avoid uneven shadows. You must check the footbath water, though no one may need it. And then, of course, royal bedding must be prepared, folded and fluffed with the reverence due to celestial bodies, because the king does not lie down on mere fabric. He descends upon layers of ritual geometry. You will carry fire, you will carry water, you will carry silence in your hands like it's made of rice paper and rumors. And always, always, you must stay invisible. Tonight we walk with you through these quiet hours. We'll shuffle rice ash between our fingers, hold oil lamps up to sleeping calligraphy, and try not to let our stomachs growl loud enough to echo off royal columns. Because if anyone hears you, you'll be asked to explain why you exist. Let's begin. You rise when others sleep, not metaphorically, not like some poetic proverb about diligence or virtue, but literally, the hour when even the rats decide they've earned a nap. The silence of the palace at night isn't peaceful. It's the kind that tiptoes. It breathes against the paper walls. It watches you. You roll up your bedding, which is not a mattress, nor even a real mat. It's a flattened relic of something that used to be cotton, now thinned to the texture of an elderly leaf. You fold it tightly and tuck it into a storage chest that already smells like old rice and anxious sweat. The other attendants are doing the same in unison, like a school of fish trained in sorrow. Your feet are already cold. The floor feels like a slab of compressed centuries. You are not allowed to wear socks yet? Not until you VA reported for your shift? The logic is unclear. Perhaps the socks represent privilege. Perhaps someone long ago decided warm feet would make you lazy. You step into the corridor. The lanterns are still dim, shadows stretching like sleepy cats along the wooden beams. The air smells faintly of soot, boiled water, and rules. Everything here smells like rules. You head toward your first duty, sweeping the corridor outside the concubine's quarters. Not because it's dirty, it isn't. Dust is terrified of this place, but because routine is more sacred than reason. You pick up your broom. It's not even a proper broom. It's a bundle of stiff reeds tied together with string, the sort of thing you'd expect to use in a rice barn or to swat a persistent goose. Yet here you are, using it to dust royal footsteps. Each stroke must be silent even, and executed as though you're apologizing to the floor for having ever touched it. Maybe you thought Palace's life would be elegant. Long robes, silk sleeves, gentle gongs. You are in a long wooden hallway that creaks when it feels like it, filled with dust that must not be acknowledged. and surrounded by people who are not permitted to look you in the eye. You aren't part of the palace. You're part of the palace's ability to pretend it doesn't need cleaning. You sweep in straight lines, always straight. Diagonals are chaotic, and you are not here to cause unrest in the geometry of power. There's a knock at a far door. You freeze. It's not for you, you hope. Your breath hangs in your chest like laundry in a sudden wind. After a moment, nothing follows. Maybe a senior maid retrieving water. Or maybe it was a bird. It's a very disciplined bird with formal knocking habits. You continue sweeping. Your fingers begin to sting. The broom handle is wrapped in cloth, but it's still like holding the spine of a judgmental tree. You want to switch hands, but protocol says you must not. Not until the midpoint of the hall, of course. Protocol says many things. It says you must not sigh, not while walking. It says you must not blink too slowly in front of a superior. It says you must sweep dust that isn't there, bow to people who never see you, and exist with all the presence of a misplaced spoon. And so you sweep. It's not because there is dust, but because there is duty, and because no one else is awake to notice if you Dante, except the palace itself. You walk the corridor again. You walked it an hour ago. You'll walk it again in 20 minutes. It is both a hallway and a time loop. And tonight, you are its permanent resident. This corridor, polished, silent, suspiciously long, stretches like the spine of a sleeping dragon. It curves just enough to never let you see the end. The oil lamps set into their wooden holders cast a warm glow, but not enough to feel comforted. Just enough to remind you that you are still visible. To someone, somewhere, you carry the lamp oil pot in your right hand. Small, ceramic, smooth, and probably older than your parents'. It drips faintly. It always drips faintly. Not enough to be considered spilling, just enough to ruin your sleeve. The sleeve, which is white linen, of course, because nothing hides oil better than white linen. You stop at the first lantern. It's still lit, but flickering. You adjust the wick with a brass pick, feeling the heat lick your knuckles. The lantern hums faintly. Or maybe that's your ears. Either way, the flame steadies. 1 down. 19 to go. Maybe you thought being a palace servant would come with slippers. Maybe you imagined quiet music floating through the halls, a benevolent mistress handing you tea, or at the very least, appreciation. No. You have one job: to keep the corridor warm, lit, and forgettable. You are the human version of background maintenance. If you are noticed, you've failed. The second lantern is out. Of course it is. It's always this one. You relight it carefully, shielding the flame with your hand, though the breeze shouldn't reach this far indoors. It does anyway. The palace has its own winds. They move like gossip, quick and invisible. Your feet ache, not from distance, but from dignity. You are not allowed to shuffle. You must walk in small, precise steps, feet never dragging, heels never striking too loud. The palace hates echoes unless they come from drums. So you walk. It's the same pace, the same route. You pass the same folding screen with the same mountain and crane painting that you fairly certain is staring back at you. Somewhere behind one of these walls, someone important is dreaming on a bed made of silk, under a canopy that costs more than your life. Your hand itches. You can't scratch it. The oil pot might tip. The lanterns must stay lit. Your sleeve must not crinkle. You reach the end of the corridor. Turn around. Start again. This time, the door to the tea chamber is slightly ajar. You weren't told to go in. You weren't told not to. The lamp inside is dark. Someone forgot, or someone is testing you. The palace does that. Likes to play small games with large consequences. You hesitate, then step inside. Quietly, your shadow moves across the floor like it's trying not to embarrass you. You light the lantern, you bow to the empty room, you leave. Repeat the corridor patrol. You will repeat it again. You will repeat it again. And no one will ever say thank you. You're carrying fire now. Not metaphorically, literally. A small iron brazier filled with glowing coals. Balanced carefully on a wooden tray that wobbles slightly when your left foot favors its old blister. The coals shift as you walk, whispering little crackling secrets to each other. One wrong tilt, and you become the reason the royal floorboards have scorch marks. Or worse, the reason someone has to repaint a dragon. The brazier is meant for warmth, not yours. Of course not. It was destined for the room of a minor official who once sneezed near the Queen Dowager and was promoted sideways. You're not supposed to shiver, but you do. The warmth from the brazier climbs only as high as your wrists and stops. It doesn't help your breath, which comes out in delicate puffs, like a ghost that doesn't want to be noticed. You pass through the garden path, the one lined with stone lanterns and rules. The air smells of pine needles, old ash, and something floral that never quite blooms. Your path is lit, but not too lit. Too much brightness offends the stars. The tray is heavy, not dramatic heavy. Just enough to remind your elbows that you were born with bones. Every step makes your shoulder twitch, your back complain, your toes remember they exist, but no one will carry it for you, and you must not stop. There is no version of this job where you lean against a pillar and sigh. That would be indulgent, like breathing too deeply or enjoying a breeze. Maybe you thought fire would mean power. Maybe you imagined torches and command, dramatic lighting, the respect that comes from handling flame. Instead, it's just responsibility without benefit. You're trusted with heat but forbidden from warming yourself. You reach the chamber door. It opens silently, because you oiled the hinges last week. You kneel. The brazier is placed on the polished floor, its legs making soft clicking sounds like cautious hooves. The room is empty. The official is asleep behind a screen painted with tigers who look more startled than fierce. You bow. Twice. Once for the man, once for the tiger, just to be safe. Then you back out. The tray is lighter now, but your arms still ache. They will ache tomorrow and the day after. They've decided aching is a full-time lifestyle. You return to the kitchen side room where the next brazier waits. Still glowing. Still yours. The next delivery is to a musician, a court player with delicate fingers and a bad temper. His room must be exactly 17 degrees warm, as measured by an elder's elbow in an old poem. If it's too cold, the instruments complain. If it's too warm, the ink runs. You lift the tray again. Your hands remember the balance, the tilt, the weight. You do not, because you are cold. You are always cold. Even when you carry fire, you think silence is peaceful, until you're forced to maintain it. In the palace at night, silence isn't a background. It's a rule, a structure, a performance you are required to participate in, like a mute choir of furniture with opinions. The halls don't merely expect quiet. They demand it. They absorb it. They sharpen it until every movement you make feels like an accident. Your slippers, if they can be called that, are thin strips of cloth wrapped around your feet, like apologies. They provide no cushioning, no warmth, and absolutely no forgiveness when you step wrong and the wood creaks like an old man with a secret. You flinch. Sound echoes once, twice, and then settles into the air like gossip in a small town. You freeze. Somewhere beyond the screen, someone shifts in bed, maybe just turning over, maybe rising to report the noise, maybe rehearsing your punishment in their head. You continue walking, slower now, like you're trying not to startle the floor itself. Your arms are stiff at your sides, your breath shallow, even your thoughts try to be quiet. You reach the door of the calligraphy hall. Inside, a scribe sleeps upright, his head bowed like a wilted tulip over half-dried ink. The lamps inside are low, casting long shadows over scrolls lined up like scoldings. You're here to check that the brazier hasn't gone out. You're not supposed to speak. You're not even supposed to knock. You enter without a sound. Your feet slide more than step. The paper door closes behind you with a hush so gentle, you feel like you've stolen something. The brazier is glowing, barely. One coal flickers like a bored firefly. You add more from the pouch in your sleeve, each piece placed gently with metal tongs that are colder than your fingers. The new coals catch slowly, exhaling faint heat that stops just short of being helpful. The scribe stirs. You bow. You don't look up, you wait. He mumbles something. Maybe a name, maybe a complaint. You don't answer. Because you don't have a name in this room. It's just a function. Maybe you thought silence meant stillness, that it was restful. But here, silence is work. You must open doors without squeaks. You must light lanterns without sizzles. You must breathe in a way that doesn't remind anyone you exist. You bow again. The scribe is already asleep, or pretending. You back out of the room one step at a time, counting heartbeats instead of distance. The door shuts behind you with the same careful non-sound. You're sweating now, even in the cold. It's not from heat, but from effort. Being silent is exhausting. Back in the hallway, a drop of sweat trickles down your back like a particularly bold insect. You want to wipe it away? You don't, because the sleeve might rustle, because the silence might break, because someone might hear. And because here, noise is more dangerous than fire. You weren't born a shadow, but here, in the palace at night, you've become one. You slip through the corridors like a roomer in a temple, tasked with errands that must be completed invisibly. You carry a folded towel for the royal footstool inspector. Yes, it's a real position, and must deliver it without eye contact, without words, without ever being remembered. You are not a person. You are a convenient absence. Your reflection in the polished door is starting to concern you. It's not because it looks tired, you already know that, but because it looks faint. As though even the mirror isn't sure you should be there. The towel smells faintly of camellia oil and responsibility. It's been folded exactly 8 times. Not 7, not 9. 8. Any deviation implies disobedience, or worse, personality. You hold it like it's made of spun glass and disappointment. Your route takes you through the blue Lotus pavilion, the one lined with tiles that sound like bones if you step wrong. The wind threads through the arches, a needle pulling silk air behind it. The moon casts long, judgmental rectangles on the floor. You pass another servant. You don't speak. Neither do they. The glance you share is brief and entirely made of shared regret. Says, "You too? And still alive? And let's not ruin this by being visible." You enter the chamber. It's empty. Of course it is. The inspector doesn't sleep here. He merely checks things. And someone decided this towel must arrive here, in this specific room, at this specific hour, because protocol, which in palace terms is code for we've always done it this way. Don't question it. You place the towel on the stool. It must lie perfectly centered. Not because anyone will notice if it's crooked, but because someone might. And in the palace, might is enough to end you. You bow to the empty room. Again and again. Just in case someone invisible is watching. You leave with your hands empty, but your back heavier than before. The corridor has grown longer while you were inside. That's how corridors work at night. They stretch a little smugly whenever you're most tired. Maybe you thought shadows were free, that drifting through the night without notice would feel like peace. But no. It feels like being erased in real time, like chalk in the rain. You crave the sound of your own name just to prove you haven't vanished entirely. You pause near a window. Ah! The moonlight falls across your hand, and for a moment you exist. Pale skin, dry knuckles, one cracked nail. That's all it takes to remind yourself. You're still here, just barely. But the moment ends. Duty calls, silently, of course. You return to the hallway. The floor greets you with another creak of disapproval. You smile at it, not because you're amused, but because it's the only one that noticed you. You are a shadow. The shadows don't complain. The laundry does not belong to you, and yet somehow it owns your life. But a night's assignment is simple on paper. Collect the underrobes from the southern bathing quarters and deliver them to the steaming shed without dragging them, wrinkling them, or letting them touch unpurified air, which, as far as you can tell, includes every breath you've ever taken. You clutch the bundle of robes to your chest. They're damp, faintly, with the kind of moisture that smells expensive. Lavender water, boiled rice starch, and the ghost of sandalwood. You smell like a noblewoman's elbow now, but only for a few minutes. The robes are heavy, not by weight, but by consequence. If you drop them, someone dreams about you dying in a respectful manner. If you crease them, someone writes your name on a scroll in the wrong tone. If you get a speck of ash on the hem, a minor official will sigh deeply, and you will feel it in your salary for 3 months. You walk slowly, not too slowly. That implies hesitance, not too quickly. That implies disrespect. You aim for that perfect in-between pace, the one that says, I am humble, efficient, and also invisible. The steaming shed is on the edge of the inner courtyard. The path is paved in stone that radiates cold directly into your ankles. Someone once said these stones were chosen for their elegance. You're fairly sure they were chosen for their resentment. As you cross the courtyard, a wind rises, polite at first, then suddenly ambitious. Your sleeve flaps. The top robe twitches like it's trying to escape. You grip harder. You mumble something apologetic to the fabric. The fabric ignores you. You arrive. You bow to the empty doorway. Of course, everything gets bowed too. Your knees have learned the shape of this place more than your hands. Inside the steaming shed, the air is thick, damp, sweet with cedarwood smoke and boiling water. Your lungs complain, gently but firmly. The floor is slick. The tiles sigh underfoot, and your socks make a noise like someone regretting a decision. You place the robes on the bamboo slats with the reverence usually reserved for national treasures. A drop of water splashes from above, just narrowly missing the collar. You don't breathe until you've arranged the folds. 1, 2, 3. Parallel. Neat. Maybe. You thought laundry was simple. It is not. Not here. Here, a misplaced fold is a betrayal of status. A wrong scent is a symbol of disorder. A robe is not cloth. It's hierarchy stitched in silk and expectation. You exit the shed. The door slides shut with the practiced elegance of someone pretending they didn't see you. Your sleeves are damp now, not from the laundry. The mist lingers. It clings. It carries secrets from one robe to another, like a gossiping breeze. You feel like a walking sponge of unearned intimacy. You step into the night again. The stars blink above the tiled roofs like they're struggling to stay awake, you understand. Laundry isn't finished, it never is. Because tomorrow, someone will bathe again, and you will carry it all once more. Folds, scents, and invisible instructions. You are not supposed to be hungry. It's not because you've eaten, of course, you haven tea, but because hunger is considered a distraction, a personal failing. Something you should have trained out of yourself by now, like independent thought or the desire to own socks with padding. The palace kitchen is closed. The great hearth is dark. The last bowl of soup was ladled hours ago, and it went to someone with a title, a hat, and the freedom to frown in public. You pass the edge of the kitchen courtyard and smell it. The leftover steam of barley porridge and radish broth, clinging to the air like gossip from a window that was closed too late. Your stomach growls. Loudly. It's a traitor. It echoes off the lacquered walls, like a protest song sung by a single bassoon. You pretend you didn't hear it. Maybe the wind made that noise. Maybe a fox in the distance has indigestion. You adjust your belt and keep walking. You were told not to expect food during your shift. It's for the day servants. The night is for fasting, focus, and pretending the human body doesn't have needs. You tried drinking hot water. It worked for 3 minutes. Then it reminded your stomach how empty it was. In the servant's side chamber, someone has left a small bundle wrapped in faded cloth. You know what it is before you open it? Rice crust. The hard edge of a pot scrap, saved from scraping, passed in secret. Still warm, slightly. It's probably dropped off by a sympathetic laundress or a junior musician who knows what cold hunger feels like. You thank them in your mind. You will never know who it was. You will never be allowed to ask. You nibble the crust quietly like someone stealing flavor from a memory. It's dry, sharp, tastes like survival. A little char, a little grain, a faint whisper of salt. It's the best thing you've eaten all week. Ach. Maybe you imagined palace food was indulgent. Platters of grilled fish, honeyed fruits, candied chestnuts. That happens, just not for you. You once glimpsed a noble child's snack tray and nearly cried. Dried persimmons, sugared rice cakes, and something that might have been a candied lotus root or a dream. Your own snacks? Crusts, steam, regret, and the occasional miracle of finding half a chestnut on the floor and deciding not to ask how it got there. You finish the crust. It's gone too fast, like your mouth is still expecting more. Your stomach is already negotiating disappointment. You rinse your hands in a cold basin, not because they're dirty, but because ritual demands you wash away even the memory of taste. You return to your post. Oh. The night continues. The nobles sleep. The moon tilts in the sky like it's trying to decide if it's worth the effort. And you are no longer hungry, just waiting to be again. There is a bench in the courtyard. It's made of stone, carved with care, polished by centuries of royal ankles in courtier robes. You are standing next to it. You are not sitting on it. You can't. Not because it's forbidden, though technically it is. Not because it's sacred, though everything is. in its own confusing way. But because if anyone saw you resting, the palace might collapse from the shock. And someone would definitely write a poem about your laziness. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. Your ankles crack in quiet protest. Your knees whisper complaints that sound vaguely political. The soles of your feet feel like rice cakes that have been stepped on and forgotten during a festival. You glance at the bench again. It doesn't even look that comfortable. But compared to the floor, a pine root, or your current posture, it might as well be a throne carved from clouds. The rule is unspoken, but clear. If you're standing, you're working. If you're sitting, you've abandoned hope. Maybe you thought Palace's life involved graceful lounging, servants fanning each other, sipping delicate tea with poetry on their tongues. And to be fair, that does happen. To the people who don't do any of the actual work, you, on the other hand, are tasked with delivering a folded note to a night scribe who insists he can tea. Sleep, unless the room smells faintly of pine ink and ink-related stress. You hold the note in your palm like it's a burning leaf, sealed with wax. You do not know what it says. You do not want to know. Knowledge is heavy, and your back is already tired. You deliver the message. You bow. The scribe doesn't look up. He nods toward the incense tray. You understand? He wants it lit. Of course, because everyone wants something, and they all assume you are capable of doing it quietly. Quickly, and while remaining perfectly upright, you light the incense. The curl of smoke rises like a sentence no one finishes. It smells like old temples and recent deadlines. The scribe grunts. You bow again and back out of the room, the smell of pine following you like an overly attached metaphor. Back in the corridor, the bench is still there, still judging you. Your legs tremble slightly. You consider leaning against the wall, just for a second. Just enough to shift the pressure off one hip. You try. The wall is cold, unyielding, and somehow manages to make you feel guilty for existing near it. You step away. Your spine regrets this. Your calves agree. Maybe rest isn't for you. Maybe comfort is an illusion reserved for people who deign to wake up at night to refill lamps and pretend not to exist. You look up at the sky. The stars have shuffled slightly since you last checked, like they're rearranging themselves to be more efficient. You wish your posture could do the same, but no. You are still standing. You are still not sitting. And the bench. Still empty. Of course it is. The palace doesn't just have rooms. It has witnesses. The walls don't echo. They record. The floors don't creak. They evaluate. Every surface feels like it's memorizing your footsteps, and not in a flattering way. You step softly, carefully, like you're afraid of offending a plank of wood. You are. You've seen someone get reassigned to night latrine duty because their shoes squeaked near the Queen's cousin-S chamber. Tonight, your task is to deliver a lacquered tray of ink sticks to the Crown Prince's study. The tray is light. The responsibility is not. The ink must not smudge. The box must not rattle. Your hands must not tremble, even though they do, just a little. Not from fear, exactly. More from the accumulated weight of tiny expectations stacked like teacups on your spine. The hallway to the study is lined with screens. Painted scenes of cranes, pine trees, and what you assume is moral allegory. The eyes of the crane follow you. You're not imagining it. Cranes in palace art always seem one brush stroke away from issuing a formal complaint. You reach the first step of the veranda. You stop. You bow. Step up. The floor clicks under your heel, not loudly but with intent. It's the sound of judgment in architectural form. You freeze. Listen, nothing moves. But that means nothing is definitely listening. Maybe you thought buildings were just wood and nails. Not here. Here, every part of the palace feels alive, ancient, elegant, and mildly disapproving of your posture. You walk straighter. Your shoulders regret this immediately. You deliver the tray to the outer study. You don't enter. That would be audacity. You place the box on a side table carved with dragons who look like they also Haven tea slept. The lacquer catches the lamp's light and throws it back at you as if to say, try not to mess this up. You bow. You turn. You leave. The hallway sighs as you pass, wooden panels shifting like someone turning over in bed. Someone who now knows you were there. Later, A junior attendant whispers to you near the charcoal bin. You step too close to the red tile, she says. Her voice is flat. She's not accusing. She's confirming your future. What red tile? You whisper back. She doesn't answer. Just pats your shoulder like it's already been replaced. You lie awake later, wondering which tile betrayed you. Is it a test? A mistake? A design flaw left on purpose? You don't know. You never will. You only know this. The palace listens. The paper doors seem to breathe. The roof beams creak when you walk past, as if stretching to overhear. You once sneezed near the main archive, and spent a week being glared at by a record keeper who never blinked. So now, you do not sneeze. You do not hum. You barely think above a whisper, because the palace does not forget, and its opinion of you is always one creak away from decline. Eventually, morning creeps in like an apology, slow, pale, and not nearly convincing enough. The lamps burn low now. The brazier has turned into a bowl of gray memory. The cold has settled in your knees like regret, and your eyes feel like they've been sanded gently by a monk with too much discipline. You return to the servants' quarters. Not yours. You don't have one. Not really. It's a shared corner, curtained with cloth too thin to be meaningful and too thick to ignore someone else's snoring. You pull it aside and step into the shared hush of people pretending they aren't exhausted. You're not supposed to collapse. You're supposed to lie gracefully. So you do, one limb at a time, folding yourself like paper. Your mat is thinner than your patience, but at least it's horizontal. The blanket is rough, smells faintly of boiled radish and forgotten dreams, and is just short enough to expose your ankles. It always is. That's tradition, or neglect. Or perhaps some ancient theory that ankles should suffer to promote humility. Your eyes close. The room breathes around you, soft, shallow, synchronized. No one speaks. Everyone is too tired to form words. There is a comfort in shared silence, like you're all passengers on a boat made of linen and mutual resignation. Maybe you think you'll sleep now. You won't. Your body might briefly, but your mind, still tallying errors. That sleeve you brushed against the pillar, a shadow you cast too far into the noble's corridor. The red tile, whatever that meant. Sleep here is not rest. It's rehearsal. You drift in and out. The floor creaks somewhere, someone else returning late or already rising early. A cough from across the room sends a ripple of wakefulness through the mats. You don't turn over. You don't shift. Movement implies comfort, and comfort implies arrogance. You lie still. You lie absolutely still. And you wonder how long before someone calls your name. It's not your real name, of course. That was left behind. You are now second tray, or door shadow, or that one who delivers incense too quietly. The light outside the curtain changes, softening from moon to mist to faint sun. You hear footsteps in the outer hallway, a wooden clack, a polite knock somewhere. The day is starting, which means your pause is over. You rise. You fold the mat. You smooth the blanket. You tuck yourself back into the machinery of palace life, uncreased, silent, and invisible. Because you didn't sleep, you paused, and now you resume. You aren't a spy. You aren't a scholar. You've never even been trusted with sealing wax. And yet tonight you hold a letter in your sleeve that wasn't meant to exist. The ink is still fresh. You can smell it. Sharp, herbal, with a trace of iron and rebellion. Whoever wrote it used real brush calligraphy, not the rushed scrawl of a servant with poor lighting. Every stroke was careful, deliberate, filled with meaning that probably has nothing to do with its surface message. That's how palace letters work. No? The visible meaning is never the actual one. You didn't write it? Of course not. You can't even read it. But you know who did? The maid from the Queen's chamber? The one with the soft voice and the hard eyes. She pressed the folded paper into your hand without ceremony, without words. It was warm from her palm. Still is. You're lighting the Lotus lamps tonight, she said earlier. Put this in one, that was all. Now the paper rests in your sleeve, just above your wrist bone, like a particularly judgmental bracelet. You feel it every time you move. You imagine it crackling. You imagine it shouting. You've lit hundreds of lamps before. Always with oil measured by spoons carved from bone. Always with wicks trimmed just so. But tonight, the Lotus lamp is more than a lantern. It's a message box, a secret carrier, a fireproof confession. Maybe you thought palace intrigue would be glamorous. Whispered plots, elegant disguises, coated fans. Instead, it's a paper that smells like vinegar and nerves. Hidden inside a flower-shaped oil container, carried by someone who just wanted to sweep a corridor and be left alone, you reach the eastern veranda as the lamp is waiting. White porcelain petals, shaped like a blooming lotus. It's fragile and expensive enough to ruin you if you drop it. You bow to it, not because it's alive, because here, everything gets bowed to. Even the vessels of treason. Your hands tremble. Not obviously, but enough. You open the top of the lamp with 2 fingers and slide the letter inside. It fits. Of course it fits. This has been rehearsed, not by you, but by people with better handwriting and worse intentions. You close the lamp. You light the wick. The flame catches, flickers, blooms. You bow again, and then you walk away. You never look back. You never look back. Behind you, the lamp glows softly, like it's dreaming of something better, or warning you. Maybe it's both. You've seen people write letters before. Not often. Writing is expensive. Ink is suspicious. Paper is a luxury object, like silk or sleep. Most people in the palace never write anything unless they're rich, punished, or in love. But tonight, you watch the queen's maid fold a piece of paper like it might explode. Her fingers are steady, her eyes are not. They flick toward the curtain every few seconds. Even though you both know no one's awake at this hour, except other servants and ghosts, and the ghosts are far more polite. The letter is thin, written on mulberry paper so delicate it could dissolve in a strong opinion. The writing is small, curved, and full of loops that mean nothing to you. You can't read it. That's safer. Knowing things gets you noticed. Not knowing keeps you alive. She folds it once, then again, and a third time the way courtiers fold apologies. You hold the lamp base steady as she slides the letter underneath the wick dish. It disappears with a soft rustle, the sound of quiet rebellion. The lamp is reassembled. The wax seal melts. The lid is pressed shut. Maybe you thought messages would be passed in the open. A dramatic moment, Kate whisper. A tearful handoff beneath a cherry tree. No, it's oil lamps. An unscented glue. It's fire and silence and someone saying, "Don't blink too much after this." The maid doesn't look at you as she finishes. She just exhales and says, "If anyone asks, I was never here." You nod. Because that S what nods are for. Confirming things you want to be involved in. The room is cold, not entirely. It's cold enough to remind you that being useful is not the same as being safe. You light the lamp. The flame takes its time. The oil is thick tonight. It smells faintly of sesame, though you doubt that's intentional. You watch the flame catch, tremble, then settle into the familiar golden blur that says everything is fine. Nothing is ever fine. The lamp glows. The letter is inside. Somewhere someone will receive it. You don't know who. You don't want to know. Curiosity is a candle in a paper house. You bow to the lamp, of course. Always. The flame flickers back, which is not a sign, but your brain treats it like one. The maid is already gone. You're alone now. With the lamp and the secret, carry it back through the corridor. Slowly, carefully, your sleeves do not rustle. Your breath is shallow. The ink might as well be pulsing inside the porcelain. Maybe you thought being a servant meant obedience, routine, and occasional rice. But sometimes you're a delivery system for someone else's desperation. And it fits inside a lotus-shaped lamp folded into silence. You step into the corridor, and instantly the air changes. Not in temperature, though it's always colder than it should be here. Like the walls hold grudges, but in silence. This isn't ordinary stillness. It's the kind of quiet that listens, records, and waits to repeat your mistakes at just the wrong time. The lacquered floor creaks beneath your foot softly, apologetically, as if warning you, not alerting others. These halls were built to carry sound, to echo, footsteps with the subtlety of guilt. Maybe you thought you'd pass unnoticed, lamp in hand, like a whisper gliding through the palace spine. But this is the East Corridor, and the East Corridor remembers everything. The smell here is part incense, part wax, part something old, and suspiciously floral, not real flowers, those wilt by noon. This is perfume, soaked into the wood from 100 years of noble shoulders brushing past. Powdered camellia. A whiff of musk, memory of someone who got caught. You hold the lamp tightly, not too tightly. Pressure makes your hand shake, just enough to keep it upright. The paper inside does not crinkle, pretends to sleep. Maybe. You thought carrying something hidden would feel exciting, but it's just heavy. Lands is heavy. Heavy like guilt baked into rice. A mouse darts across the floor, too bold for its own good. You envy its confidence, doesn't care who's watching. You, on the other hand, are fairly certain the shadows are judging you. The corridor leads. Past 6 doors, you know each one by its squeak. The 3rd door moans like a flute in mourning. The 5th doesn't open at all. It was sealed after the concubine incident. Don't ask. You didn't ask. No one asks. Every door holds secrets. None are yours. And yet somehow, you are the most suspicious thing in this hallway right now. You walk slower. Maybe slower helps. Maybe slower looks obedient. The lantern flickers just a little. You steady it? Maybe someone saw. Maybe no one saw. Maybe the walls are whispering to each other behind your back like bored courtiers. Your feet know this route by heart. But your heart seems unsure. It thuds too loudly. It might as well be knocking on each door, announcing your presence. Hello, I'm passing by. No, I'm not carrying treason, just a lamp. Just a glowing bowl of betrayal. You round the final turn. The side room waits. It's empty, or it should be. Or maybe it's not. The corridor lets you go. It doesn't forget you. It just stops watching for now. You place the lamp in its usual spot, near the painted screen of cranes flying toward the moon. How poetic. How deceptive. You straighten it. You bow, of course, and then you leave. The floor creaks once behind you. It wasn't you. You don't turn around. You never turn around, because the corridor remembers everything. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You've lit the lamp. You've walked the corridor. You've placed the thing where it needed to be, and now, nothing. Nothing happens. And that, somehow, is more alarming than if something had. You return to the outer veranda with no new instructions, no sudden screams, no urgent summons. No one bursts through a door and demands to see your sleeves. Which should be a relief, except it isn't. In the palace, stillness is rarely safe. Stillness is when consequences sharpen their teeth. You sit by the edge of the walkway,
softly sitting,
just resting in a crouch so ambiguous it could be mistaken for a devotional stretch. You stare at the gravel. It stares back. Maybe you expected an instant result. A shadowy figure stepping from behind a screen, bowing slightly, whispering code words about peonies blooming in spring. But instead, there's only the rustle of leaves. A frog chirps. Somewhere, a breeze forgets where it's going and gives up halfway. Through, you shift your weight. Nothing. You clear your throat. Quietly, still nothing. Maybe that's the point. The palace doesn't reward initiative. Doesn't like it when servants act without instruction, even if those actions come from someone higher up the chain of quiet authority. You obeyed a command, but whose? And to what end? You don't know. Which is both protection and danger, like walking across a frozen pond in the dark. You watch the lantern glow from a distance. The flame is steady. Too steady, it should flicker. It should react to wind, unless the wind knows better. The maid who gave you the letter is nowhere in sight. She has dissolved back into the palace, as all smart people do after doing something. Unwise, you pull your sleeve over your fingers. The chill is creeping in again. It always does around this hour, the time when the moon is high, but not helpful. And even the walls seem to yawn. Maybe you imagined there would be a sign, a shift. In the air, a murmur from a door. A single crane lifting its painted neck and nodding in solidarity. Instead, you get a moth. It flutters near the lamp, bounces once, lands on your shoulder, brush it away. It returns. You brush it away again. It returns. You surrender. Maybe. The moth knows something you don't. Maybe it's just hungry and unimpressed. By your significance, you sit a little longer. Your knees begin to ache. Not dramatically, just enough to remind you that crouching isn't rest. But standing makes you look anxious. Walking makes you look suspicious. Lying down makes you disappear in the wrong way. So you stay still, watching, waiting, while nothing happens, and suspecting. More and more that nothing might be the loudest thing of all. Asterisk, asterisk, you wake up standing. You don't remember falling asleep. But your legs are locked, your back stiff, and your mouth tastes like dust that once aspired to be tea. You've clearly dozed off for a minute, or maybe longer upright. Like an anxious tree, the lamp is still glowing. The gravel hasn't shifted. Nothing has changed, yet everything feels different. That's how the palace works. Reality adjusts while your back is turned. You glance down the corridor. Empty. You glance toward the gate, still closed. You glance inside yourself. Nothing there either. Just the steady, creeping realization that by carrying that letter, by placing it inside that innocent petal-shaped lamp, you've become involved. Not just accidentally, irrevocably. Maybe you thought you were just helping a favor, small task. Something easy to forget about afterward. But now, the weight is in your joints, your shoulders, your breath. It has set up camp inside your ribs. You're part of something now. You just don't know what. That's the worst part. The not knowing if you'd overheard a plot or stolen a map, or at least found a suspicious sigil hidden inside a peach, you'd understand the danger. But this is quieter, softer, more like a thread being pulled somewhere behind a curtain. You rub your temple carefully. You've learned not to wrinkle your face too obviously. The palace notices things like that. A junior steward passes nearby, nods slightly, keeps walking. You nod back. It's all politeness and nothingness, until his glance lingers just a little too long on the Lotus lamp. Did he see you place it? He told, is he involved? Can't ask. You can't not wonder. You imagine a scroll somewhere listing names. Maybe yours is on it now, not in ink. An implication. The worst kind of inclusion. You recall the maid's voice? It's steady, calm, unremarkable. People with voices like that don't get caught. They vanish into wallpaper and bureaucracy, into folds of handbox sleeves and echoing service quarters. You, though, you're not practiced at this. You're practiced at scrubbing basins, holding trays, folding bedding into measured creases that align with royal dreams. You're good at existing only where needed, and yet, now you're part of someone's plan. Maybe you expected the world to feel different after doing something risky. Maybe the skies would shift. Maybe a noble would drop a porcelain cup and say, "Ah, the winds have changed." But no, it's the same dust, the same lamp. It's the same silence, just slightly denser. You exhale. You straighten your back. You smooth your sleeves. Like you haven't been clutching them, and you walk back inside the servants' passage like someone. With no thoughts at all, because that's your job. To walk, to clean, to light, to forget. Even now, even after everything. The lamp is gone. That's the first thing you notice when you pass the room again the next night. The same alcove, the same carved screen with the cranes flying in awkward formation. But the Lotus lamp is no longer there. Just a faint ring of soot where the base once sat, and a shallow dent in the floor that says something heavy lingered there a little. It's too long. Maybe it was moved for cleaning. Maybe it cracked. Maybe. It was never there. You know better? The maid is gone too. Not officially. Not publicly. Her mat is still rolled. Her shoes still lined up beside the door like obedient pets. But she hasn't appeared at morning roll call. Hasn't fetched water. Hasn't corrected your bowing posture with that soft, vicious glance. It's the kind of disappearance that doesn't shout. It simply ... spreads. You ask nothing. You mention nothing. Because asking is dangerous. Because wondering is almost the same as testifying. Instead, you light the hallway lanterns. You sweep the outer walk. You fold and unfold a towel 3 times. because the inspector was unsure if it looked too casual. Everything you do is the same, but your mind keeps replaying the moment, her hand pressing the paper into yours. The smell of ink, the way her breath didn't tremble even when yours did. Maybe you thought secrets would vanish once delivered, but they don't. They change shape, evaporate into the space between tasks, into the cracks in the floor, into the empty alcove where a lamp once stood. There's a new lamp there now. It's not a Lotus. It's shaped like a gourd. Smaller, less elegant, a replacement that declares itself normal, too normal, suspiciously normal. You light it anyway. Because you must. Because hesitation implies guilt. And you already have enough of that. You pass a maid in the corridor. A different one. She looks at you like she knows something. Or maybe like she doesn't, but suspects she should. You smile. Politely. Like a person who has never touched treason in the shape of folded paper. The night continues. There are towels to fold, doors to slide, a cat to shoo gently from the laundry path. You hear the older steward mention something in passing. Some girls transferred to the other palace. He doesn't say names. He doesn't say why. He shrugs and eats a radish like it holds no deeper meaning. Maybe she was transferred. Maybe she left on purpose. Maybe she's behind a door right now. It's watching the lamp you just lit, hoping you don't ask questions. You won't, because she gave you a job, and you completed it. And now she's gone, and the lamp is gone, and nothing else has changed except you. You've changed. You know it when you kneel to light the replacement. Your hands don't shake this time, and the flame doesn't flicker. Asterisk, 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 you're back to your usual duties, which is to say, you are once again folding things that don't want to be folded, carrying things that are slightly too warm and pretending. Your thoughts aren't making noise. The palace likes order, but it especially likes emotional order. You are supposed to be serene, blank, mildly reverent. You are not supposed to replay a 2-second interaction in your head 15 times while scrubbing the base of a screen door. And yet, the letter, the lamp. Her hand it replays without your permission, like an official ceremony you're forced to attend in your own brain. Maybe you thought the mind could forget on command. It's like blowing out a candle, but yours refuses, keeps the wick smoldering, letting little thoughts flare up when you least expect them. Tonight, you're wiping down a writing desk in one of the side rooms. It's filled with brush holders shaped like clouds and inkstones carved with dragons trying to act professional. You're not supposed to touch anything but the surfaces, especially not the drawers. But your fingers pause near one. Just for a moment too long, you don't open it. Of course you don't. You think about it, though. You think about what would happen if there were another letter inside. Or if the letter you helped hide had never been retrieved and someone found it now, and somehow your fingerprints glowed like guilt in the dark. The drawer stays closed. The desk is cleaned. You move on. You pass a hall steward in the garden, and he says, "You're quiet tonight." You nod and smile. You're always quiet.
That's the entire point of view.
But now it sounds like an accusation. You scrub a basin in the bathing hall and try not to notice how much it looks like a giant bowl where someone might dissolve evidence. You fold towels into fourths and fight the irrational urge to check every hymn 4 tucked notes. You step around a puddle and imagine it shaped like a character from the letter, even though you couldn't read it. That doesn't stop your brain from inventing meanings. Maybe you thought being done with something meant it was over. But the palace doesn't work that way. The palace stores memory like a silkworm hoards thread endlessly, pointlessly. And with a sort of damp devotion, you find yourself walking the eastern veranda again. You're not assigned here tonight, but your feet take you anyway. Habit or curiosity, or unfinished thoughts. The new lamp still burns. The gourd shape hasn't. Cracked. It flickers faintly in the wind, like it knows you're watching. You stare at it. It stares back. You do not speak. You bow. Out of habit or apology. Or both. Then you turn, walk away, and try again. Not to think about it. You're not supposed to think about it. But you do. Asterisk, asterisk. It starts with a glance. You're delivering a small tray of barley tea to a court lady, who won't drink it because it was steeped 3 minutes too long. She won't say anything, of course. She just let it cool beside her like a silent critique, then hand it back untouched. But while passing through the west courtyard, a boy from the candle rooms looks up as you pass. Just for a second, his expression says, "I know." Or maybe it says, "I think I know, and I want to see if you flinch." You don't flinch. You blink. You keep walking. Your tray does not rattle, but your ribs do. That night, another servant you barely speak to brushes a little too close when reaching for a folded cloth. She whispers, "Be careful with the gourd lamp." Then she walks away. You don't ask what she means. You don't want to know whether it's a warning, it's a threat, or some kind of palace metaphor you weren't briefed on. Maybe you thought secrets were heavy only for the person carrying them. But here, they pass around like incense smoke. Thin, lingering, impossible to trap. Everyone smells it, but no one names the scent. The steward who assigns night rotations skips over you this week. There's no explanation, just a faint frown and a scratch behind his ear, like he's adjusting the invisible list of people to not ask to. Much of your given laundry folding. You don't complain. You fold slowly. Carefully. You think about how easy it would be to hide a note in a hem. You feel guilty for even thinking that, which only makes it worse. It's guilt for imaginary crimes, layered onto guilt for real ones you didn't understand in time. Someone laughs behind a curtain. You don't know if it's about you. It probably isn't, but maybe it is. That's the magic of palace life. Paranoia arrives in your tea without being stirred. You sweep the back veranda and find a scrap of paper in the corner. It's blank, but your heart still jumps, like it's seen a ghost trying to write you a message. You burn it. You don't know why. You just do, because it's safer that way. Later, during the evening meal, the one you help serve but never taste, you hear the older cook mutter, as people go missing more often in spring. She says it while slicing lotus root, thin as paper. No one replies, not even you. Maybe you thought once the letter was gone, the danger would be too, but danger here is like scent in fabric. It lingers, it hides and folds. It waits until the light is right. Someone else knows, or thinks they do, or wants you to believe they do. And no one will say it because that would be too loud, and the palace doesn't like loud. You almost ask the question. It's right there, balanced on the edge of your tongue like a porcelain cup left on a ledge. One word, one glance, one inhaled syllable too deep. You might actually say it. Where is she? But of course, you don't. You're not new. You've seen what happens to questions. They don't get answers, get rerouted, rephrased, reshaped into chores. Ask about a missing maid, and suddenly you're assigned to inventory kitchen firewood for 3 days without a shade hat. Instead, you clean the same window 3 times, because it's better to appear diligent than curious. The rag squeaks in protest, as if trying to say, "You're making this worse," but it can't speak. Unlike you, who mustn't. You pass the hall steward. His brows twitch like he wants to say something. He doesn't. You don't either. It's a stalemate of silence, and silence always wins here. Maybe you thought you'd find someone to confide in, come to trusted senior, a clever laundress, a half-asleep kitchen boy with a good heart. Someone who'd listen and say, "Don't worry, I'll help." But this isn't a tale told by candlelight. This is the palace. Here people carry kindness like they carry knives, hidden, rare, and only drawn when no one's watching. Sweep the porch steps. You fold laundry. Change out the incense in the meditation room. The new blend smells like pine bark and polite disinterest. Every task is a distraction, very deliberate distraction. You begin to suspect the steward knows more than he's saying. Maybe they all do. Maybe the letter wasn't just delivered. Maybe it was intercepted. Or maybe it was meant to be intercepted. You stop yourself. Too many maybes. You cannot afford imagination right now. It burns calories and reveals facial expressions. You kneel beside the washing basin. You rinse cloths in cold water, your fingers. Go numb by the 3rd one. You keep going. Behind you, someone walks past. Not fast, not slow, just enough to be noticed. A hesitation that says, "I see you." Maybe you keep your eyes on the cloth. The water darkens with soap. Your reflection stares back, slightly warped, as if you're already half dissolved. Into the job, You dry your hands. You stand. You do not ask. You never ask, but you do allow one small question to live. Quietly in the back of your throat, just in case one day someone answers without being prompted. Until then, you fold, you scrub, bow, because silence is safer than curiosity. And in the palace, why? Is a luxury item and you can't afford it. Asterisk, 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 the gourd lamp still burns every night. Without fail, you pass by, and there it is, steady, modest, unremarkable. Its flame is smaller than the Lotus lamp's was, less elegant, less symbolic. But maybe that's the point. Maybe symbolism is dangerous now. You pause near it again tonight. It's not long, just enough for the flame to flicker once, like it's acknowledging your habit. Oh, you don't know if it's been replaced since. Ask. You don't even touch it. But you keep noticing it glows with a kind of indifference, the way a cat watches people arguing in a courtyard, unimpressed by everyone's emotions. You thought by now something would have changed. The maid would return. Someone would drop. A hint, a scroll would be misplaced and quietly suggest what the letter said. Maybe a minor scandal, maybe a confession, maybe just a recipe written in code. Something, anything. But no, she's still gone. The lamp is still here and you're still standing in the same spot, still pretending not to care, still watching the flame like it owes you an explanation. Maybe you imagined justice had a timetable, or that answers showed up eventually, like laundry that always finds its way back from the drying line. But some questions in the palace go unanswered not because no one knows, but because, too, many people do. You light a different lamp nearby. This one's for the scholar's quarters. Its wick smokes at first, then settles. The scholar prefers. His room's dim, claims it helps him think. You wonder what he would say if he knew you once lit a lamp with a secret inside. Probably write a poem about it. Probably miss the point entirely. You dust the hallway railings. You realign a row of shoes. Outside the meditation chamber, you nod at a passing servant who used to smile, and now, dud. Nothing changes. Except you. You no longer check over your shoulder when someone walks behind you. You no longer pause at creaky steps. You no longer imagine the maid appearing again. Rounding a corner with a tray and a smirk, as if the whole thing was a game and you played it well. Now, you just work, and the lamp burns. You don't know what was in the letter. You don't know who received it. You don't know what it started, or stopped, or prevented. But you know this. You helped. You did something. And in a palace full of you, people who specialize in doing nothing noticeable that makes you dangerous, or useful, or both. You bow to the gourd lamp before leaving the hall, not because it's required. Because some part of you remembers that the first one, the Lotus, once held a secret. And maybe this one does too. You. LL never know. But it still burns, and so do you, quietly, without question. Asterisk, asterisk, you've been assigned to bedding duty. This sounds simple until you realize that folding royal bedding isn't just a task, it's a ceremony with no music. A ritual with no prayer, a puzzle with no visible edges. The mats are laid out already. Thick layers of cotton, wrapped in silk, so smooth it squeaks faintly when touched like a mouse having second thoughts. The room is silent, wide, bright in the wrong way. Not warm bright, judgmental bright. It's a kind of light that makes you. Aware of how uneven your bow was, you step inside, bow, and kneel. The floor is warm from the morning sun, or from the weight of expectations. Hard to tell. You aren't folding a blanket. You are performing an invisible diagram no one ever shows. It to you, it's just known, passed down from one scowling senior to another. Refined like vinegar, memorized like a secret handshake between ghosts. Every corner has to line up with every other corner in ways that obey not geometry, but geomancy. Maybe you thought a blanket was just a rectangle. It is not. It is a directional tool. Folded wrong, and the sleeper's key might drift off into the rafters, or worse, invite a dream about peasants. The consequences are both vague and terrifying. You smooth the top layer with the side of your hand, not your palm. Palms are too warm. They can bruise the fabric's intentions, someone said. That once. You didn't ask what it meant. You just stopped using your palm. There are 6 layers. The first 3 fold in halves, the 4th in thirds, and the 5th in quarters. The 6th is wrapped like it's being sent on a long journey and might offend someone if it arrives too wrinkled. The silk catches on your thumbnail. You panic, but it doesn't snag. You exhale like someone who narrowly avoided becoming a cautionary tale. The pillow is perfumed, not fragranced, perfumed. There's a difference. It smells like ground. Pear blossoms, clean paper, and misplaced superiority. You fold the edge of the bedding toward the head of the mat. Then again precisely. Single wrinkle, and the senior mat overseer. Yes.
Yes?
That's a real title. Will appear like a summoned demon with linen-based grievances. Maybe you thought nobles just threw themselves into piles of soft blankets. Happy seals. But no. Their beds must lie flat, stiff, and spiritually accurate. Comfort is only allowed if it aligns with the stars. You finish folding, you smooth, you bow, then you wait. Kneeling as someone else enters to check the alignment of the spiritual axis. You don't ask what that means either, you just hope you're not off by an inch. Because an inch in this room is a scandal. You're folding the pillow now, which sounds easy, till you remember this particular pillow belongs to someone who hasn't smiled since the last dynasty in dreams and metaphors. It's rectangular, firm, and stuffed with something that claims to be cotton but feels more like tightly wound judgment. The cover must be changed. Carefully, no wrinkles. No reverse folds. No lingering warmth from your hands. You actually wave your palms in the air beforehand, like you're cooling off secrets. You slide the old pillowcase off. It smells faintly of sandalwood and inevitability. The new case waits. Beside you, embroidered with symbols you don't understand, one looks like a turtle being mugged by a cloud. You assume it means peace. You slide the pillow in slowly, carefully, precisely, not too tight or the corners will bulge and imply unrest. Not too loose or the seams might flutter, which suggests emotional volatility. A noble must sleep on something that implies balance, composure, and the vague threat of wealth. Maybe you thought pillows were for resting. Not here. Here a pillow is a silent resume, tells the room who you are, what you fear. How much your aunt bribed the astrology bureau. Before your birth, you smooth the final edge with the tip of your sleeve, not your fingers. Fingers carry sweat. Sleeves carry plausible deniability. The pillow lies there now, centered, uncreased, nervingly symmetrical. You do not breathe too close. You do not blink too long. You bow to it. You move on. The mat must now be, your turn not. Flipped. Flipping is for peasants and military beds. You rotate it counterclockwise, unless the family horoscope suggests a fire sign is ascendant, in which case, clockwise. You weren't told today's sign. You rotate counterclockwise and hope for forgiveness. The mat shifts with a heavy sigh, like it resents you for being poor. You adjust the side folds. You recrease the corners. You resmooth the smoothed parts, because if you don't, someone will. Ask whether you meant for the edge to look rebellious. You place the pillow in its designated center space, marked not by a line, but by a memory of a line, passed down like a recipe with no quantities. It sits. It waits. It watches. Maybe. You thought beds were private? But in the palace, beds are performance spaces. What lies atop them or beneath is never just for sleep. You stand. You bow again. Step back with precision, each step echoing your invisible status. The senior mat overseer enters. He nods, once then says, might mean perfection. It might mean disaster. It might mean he saw the wrinkle you can't see yet but will remember forever. He leaves. You exhale. You are dismissed. And the pillow knows. Asterisk. Asterisk, the bedding isn't just cloth. It's memory compressed. Not your memory, of course not. You're not allowed to sleep on it. You're not even allowed to imagine sleeping on it. But as you fold the final layer, smoothing, the creases that must not resemble mountains or valleys, bad geomancy. Feel the strange weight of someone else's sleep pressing against your hands. It's a padded quilt. Thicker than logic, embroidered in gold that catches the morning light and throws it back at your face, like a sunbeam that doesn't trust you. The patterns are mostly phoenixes, or possibly roosters with aspirations. You're never told which. You're just told to fold from the feet toward the spirit, which means from the bottom, but also not too quickly. The quilt must be folded in 3 motions. Not 2, not 4. Each fold symbolizing a wish for renewal, composure, and restful. Insight. The last time someone folded it in, too, a court lady had a nightmare and accused her cousin of theft. Coincidence, maybe. But no one's tried to fold since. You lift the bottom edge. It's heavier than it should be, like it's holding all the dreams from the night before. You fold it halfway, then again, and pause. Always pause, just long enough for the fold to settle, like rice resting in a bowl. Maybe you thought folding was just mechanics, hands, angles, balance. But this is choreography, the kind performed by people who will never be applauded. You adjust the corners. They must not puff. Puffed corners suggest emotional unrest. One pillow crease out of place, and suddenly it's your fault someone dreams of betrayal, or indigestion, or both, simultaneously, in a rice field full of metaphor. You place the final folded quilt at the foot of the mat. It rests there like a sealed envelope that no one will open. The room smells faintly of incense, old silk, and the kind of tension that makes your neck itch just from existing upright. A steward passes the door. He does not enter. He only glances. His glance lasts too long. You wonder if he's checking the folds, or checking if you're the type of person who folds resentment. Into fabric. You hope not. You weren't trying to. You bow. Again, of course. Then you rise. Adjust your sleeves and step back. Precisely 3 steps. 4 implies distance. 2 implies eagerness. 3 is correct, just correct enough to vanish. You walk out of the room. As the sun continues its judgmental glow across the lacquered floor, it sees the bed. It sees the folds. It sees you pretending not to care whether your creases carry spiritual implication. And outside, as you return to the hallway, a fellow servant asks, "You did her quilt today?" You nod. She smiles slightly. "She dreamed of fire last week." She whispers, "Let's hope you didn't fold it toward the south." You laugh quietly, because maybe you did, maybe not. But you'll never know. You only fold the dreams. You don't get to have them. Asterisk, asterisk, there is a diagram. You've never seen it. But you know it exists. Somewhere in the royal archives, possibly buried. Beneath a painting of cranes with suspicious eyes, there is a scroll that explains the correct angles, positions, and orientations of bedding in relation to celestial balance. You've only heard about it through rumors. One maid claimed she glimpsed it once. She also claimed she saw a general weep into his soup, so her credibility is layered still. Everyone folds as if the diagram were real. Because even if you don't see the stars definitely see you. Today, you're helping lay out the new seasonal linens. Thicker layers, deeper dye colors, embroidered constellations. Stitched into the fabric, stars made of silk knots that poke your fingers if you press too hard. Each mat must be aligned at precisely 15 degrees northwest of the threshold. Why northwest? You once asked. Someone older whispered, because south welcomes spirits and north offends them. You didn't ask a second time? You unfold. The mat. The fabric sighs, as if unhappy to be disturbed. You apologize, out loud. Just in case the mat is listening, then you press out the creases with a bundled cloth, not your hand. No hand, ever. Skin contact is too warm, and warmth implies familiarity. And familiarity invites ghosts. You check the angles with a wooden triangle carved for this purpose alone. If it doesn't align, you adjust the base mat. If the base mat doesn't cooperate, you adjust your attitude. Maybe you thought stars belonged in the sky. But in the palace, they belong in your linens, your posture, your sleep schedule. Everything is aligned. Everything must mean something. even the direction your pillow faces. You pause before placing the quilt. You wait for the light to hit the mat just right. That's how you know it's approved. The sunlight trickles through the rice paper screens, slanting across the fabric like a ruler made of light and historical disapproval. You fold the quilt in 3 again. Always 3. Even numbers are for morning. You place it precisely at the foot. You step back. You turn the pillow just 1 degree. The embroidery now faces west. West is neutral. West is safe. Or at least, safer than inviting wind demons from the northeast. You're still not sure that's real? But no one wants to be the test case. Maybe you thought folding bedding was about softness. But this is astronomy. Architecture. Diplomacy between invisible forces and a body that just wants to lie down. You don't lie down. Of course, you bow, you leave. You carry the angle in your spine for the rest of the evening, a slight tilt. 15 degrees off center, like the mat. And you wonder if someone unfolded the mat in the wrong direction one night, would the stars notice? Would they correct the fold? Or would they just sigh from the sky and leave you to dream sideways? You don't see him enter. You never do. The senior mat overseer is like mildew, silent, sudden, and always somehow aware of your tiniest errors. He wears robes the color of forgotten documents and moves with the soundless grace of an accusation. Long rehearsed tonight, you're folding the final quilt layer in the west bed chamber. It's late, but perfection doesn't have a curfew. Your hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the accumulated memory of every time you've been told again without explanation. You smooth the corner of the mat, and then you feel it. A breath, behind you. Not cold, not warm. Present, heavy, judgmental. He's there. Of course he is. Maybe you thought you'd have time to finish before he arrived. Or that he might skip inspection tonight. Perhaps he caught a cold. Perhaps he dissolved into mist. But no, he is inevitable. Like a wrinkle you missed. You don't turn around. Turning implies awareness. Awareness implies self-importance. You just continue folding. With all the serenity of a pond, trying not to ripple while someone judges its symmetry. The quilt tonight is special imperial thread trim, goose feather padding, corner tassels that imply autumn. Even though it's summer, you fold with reverence. You pretend the air behind you doesn't shift with every breath he takes. Pretend the silence doesn't throb like a bruise made of politeness. He says nothing. He just breathes. This is worse than being scolded. If he scolded you, you'd know what you did wrong. But this means he's watching, considering. Remembering that one time last winter, when your fold was 1.2 centimeters? Too tight, you adjust the final corner of the mat. The silk glides beneath your sleeve like a secret trying to escape. You tuck it in gently as if apologizing for being touched. The room smells of polished wood and apprehension. Still, he says nothing. Still, you do not move faster. The rule is, clear, fast folding is sloppy folding. Precision requires patience and nerves of stone, or at least of slightly chilled tofu. You place the pillow, you smooth it once, then again, then pretend you didn't smooth it twice, because twice is excessive. He breathes again, louder this time. You wait for a word, a grunt. A murmur of near-dash approval. Nothing, you step back. 3 steps. Always 3. You bow. Still no sound. You walk out of the room, slowly, like someone trying not to wake a dragon who may or may not be allergic to tassels. The door slides shut behind you with a soft click, sound more final than a verdict. You exhale for the first time in 15 minutes, and then you hear it. The faintest whisper from the other side of the door. Just that, not approval, not rejection, just ambiguity. Finally aged and quietly exhaled, you have survived another folding, and he has breathed, and that, apparently, is enough. Asterisk, asterisk, the bedding is folded. The corners are aligned. The pillow is centered. The mat unwrinkled. The quilt triple-layered, with not a feather out of place. You've bowed, stepped back, and walked out at the right speed. Not too fast to seem eager, not too slow to seem smug. You've done everything right, so why does it still feel like something's missing? You return to the servants' hallway. quietly, like someone retracing their own decisions. You wash your hands in a cold brass basin, as if cleansing them of invisible lint and lingering anxiety. The water is freezing, though your fingertips are already numb from handling silk that judges you more than most living humans do. Maybe you thought once you'd finished the fold, could let it go. You can't, not because there's anything wrong, but because nothing feels quite right. The folds are correct. The senior mat overseer breathed. And yet in your bones, something leans left. Slightly, like your spine is trying to tell you the southeast corner of the quilt was a millimeter off. Cosmic alignment. You scrub harder. Not the hand, the feeling. It doesn't budge. Someone passes behind you. A linen girl. She's humming. Out loud, you blink in astonishment. Humming is rare. It's bold even. Forbidden. Not exactly, but close. Enough to suggest she doesn't carry the same weight you do. You return to your corner. Sit, not lie down. Sitting is still considered humble. Lying down is treasonous unless sanctioned. Your back hurts. Of course it does. Folding beds all evening will do that, especially when you do it under the threat of a breath and a whom. I wonder who. Will sleep on the bed you just prepared, not the queen. Hers is on the east wing. Maybe one of the consorts, or a visiting noble. Someone whose name you'll never know, but whose foot angle dictates the orientation of a mattress you aren't. Allowed to think of as soft, they'll lie down later tonight. The bedding will seem effortless to them. Clean, crisp, blessedly cool. They won't notice the subtle bend in the quilt's edge. Or maybe they will. If they do, you'll find out in 3 days. When your name is removed from the rotation and replaced with girl with uncertain corner discipline. Maybe you thought this job was about linens. It's not. It's about invisibility, precision, the art of folding yourself so neatly into service that you don't leave a single wrinkle behind. You stare at your own folded knees and think, yes, I am now symmetrical. A bell rings in the far corridor. It's the signal that bedding for the east wing is complete. Another team, another set of eyes, another overseer's breath trailing behind someone else. You nod, as if sharing a silent solidarity across the palace. You finish your cup of warm, barley water. You stand, because folding is done, but it's never really over. Asterisk, asterisk, the canopy is already up when you arrive. Silk stretched tight, dyed the color of expensive. Silence. It hangs above the bedding like a thought no one's allowed to finish. 4 posts, each carved with different symbols. Longevity, obedience, stability, and rain. You're not sure why rain? Maybe to remind them that nature exists? Beyond the window screens, your job isn't to ask. Your job is to make the bed they'll dream in. But not just any bed. A royal bed. A bed with meaning. There's a diagram for this one. You've seen it briefly. Once before it was rolled up and hidden like a shameful scroll. It showed the correct layering of mats, quilts, canopies, and emotional neutrality. If you followed the instructions exactly, the noble who slept here would be blessed with rest, fortune, and regulated spleen activity. That's a real thing, apparently. Tonight's sleeper is someone important. How do you know? Because the silk is thicker. The perfume sachets are changed twice. And the mat has already been turned down once by someone with a title. Now you just have to finish the job. Quietly. Perfectly. Without dreaming of how soft it might be, you begin with the side bolsters. 2 small cylindrical pillows that must be placed at exactly a 27-degree angle from the edge of the sleeping mat. Not 26, not 28, 27. You checked? It's 3 times? Maybe you thought being a noble meant sleeping however you liked? No. It means sleeping in pre-approved positions beneath geometry and superstition, on layers of fabric designed to communicate elegance even while unconscious. You adjust the main quilt. The outer layer is embroidered with golden clouds, which must face toward the eastern wall. Clouds that drift west suggest wandering thoughts, and wandering thoughts lead to disobedient dreams. And the last thing anyone wants is a noble. Waking up with opinions, you unfold the final sheet. It's cool to the touch, crisp, and smells like dried pear skin. You shake it out with emotion so gentle it barely counts as movement, then let it settle like a sigh from someone too rich to complain. The canopy rustles slightly above you. You don't look up. Looking up at the canopy is discouraged. It's too personal. It implies you think of sleep, and in the palace. Sleep is a privilege that must appear accidental. You bow to the bedding, you adjust your sleeve, you bow again. You don't touch the pillow. That's someone else's job, someone higher. You step back. 3 paces. You glance at the corners. Square. All still. All suggesting the noble will wake up refreshed, compliant, and spiritually centered, as long as no thread is out of place. Maybe they'll dream of peaches. Maybe they'll dream of you. You hope not. That would be inconvenient. You walk out. The canopy doesn't move. The room remains still. And outside, you take a breath. Just one, and remember how it feels to stand upright. Because inside the room, you must always fold, even when it's not you being folded. Before they sleep, someone sprinkles the pillows with scented powder. Not you, of course. You're not allowed that close. Your job is to deliver the packet. The real application is done by someone with cleaner sleeves and a better title. Still, the moment you open the sachet, the scent slips out like a rumor. Tonight's fragrance is chrysanthemum and pear, chosen, apparently, for its ability to settle the liver and encourage elegant dreaming. You didn't know the liver needed settling, but here you are, handling powder like it's medicine for someone else's unconscious mind. The scent clings to your fingers. You're not supposed to smell like anything, but now you do. Faintly. Floral, faintly responsible. You set the sachet down beside the lacquer tray. You don't look at the noble's face. You've trained your eyes to hover just below eye level, the safest place in any room. The screen behind the bed is painted with cranes and pine trees. Dignity, endurance. All the things you're supposed to feel and absolutely never say aloud. A breeze moves through the room, carefully scheduled by whoever opened the window panels exactly 3.5 inches. Too much breeze means disruption. Too little means stagnation. Both are bad for spleen harmony. Maybe you thought this was about sleep. It's not. It's about maintenance. Maintaining the illusion that everything here, from the embroidered quilt to the liver-settling powder, works like magic. Seamless. Smooth, effortless, and entirely supported by people who never get to lie down. You step away from the tray. Your hands still smell like someone else's privilege. You wipe them on your apron, then regret it. Now your apron smells too. You sneak a glance at the canopy. Still perfect. Draped like heaven's curtain, suspended on polished rods that gleam. Even in moonlight. Strange how the same material can feel comforting from underneath. And oppressive when you're the one maintaining it. The noble turns slightly in bed, just enough to make you freeze. If they speak, you must bow. If they don't, you must disappear. They don't. You disappear outside. The hallway smells like soot and night air. Familiar, honest, a little damp. You take a deep breath. The chrysanthemum lingers. You wonder just briefly what dreams smell like yours specifically. It's probably like old laundry and anxiety. Certainly not pear. You return to the linen room. There's another sachet to prepare for tomorrow. This one will be mint and orange peel, for clarity, someone said. You wrap it in rice paper, tie the string, and label it with a character you don't understand. Someone else will read it. Someone else will judge it. Someone else will sleep under it. Not you. You. I finish wrapping the scent. You place it in the tray. You straighten your sleeves. You do not yawn. You do not think about lying down. You fold. You prepare, and when the dreams come, they will not be yours. You will have helped them arrive. Asterisk fluffing the pillow is not part of your job, and yet here you are, alone in the room for exactly 12 seconds. Holding the embroidered pillow in your hands like a sleeping accusation, the assigned pillow fluffer. Yes, that's a real title, has been delayed. There was an incident involving a tipped water basin and a misinterpreted proverb. You don't ask. You don't need the details. You're just told to hold the space until she arrives. So now you stand in a sleeping chamber so quiet it hums, holding a pillow filled with goose down and judgment. pretending you're not thinking about how soft it is. It's heavier than you expect. Not physically. It's light, but historically. This pillow has hosted dreams about state affairs, imperial marriages, and whether the moon looked right last night. You're not supposed to imagine that. You do anyway. Maybe you thought fluffing a pillow was just a squeeze and a pat. Not here. Here, it's a symbolic alignment of harmony and dignity. A flattened corner might imply unrest. An overplumped side could provoke arrogance. You'd think the pillow were a diplomat. You look down. Embroidery shows a lotus. Not blooming, not closed. Suspended in that perfect state of noble potential. Like a person who almost has an opinion but knows better. You give it one soft pat. Just one. Enough to restore its shape. Not enough to leave an imprint. You place it gently back on the mat. You smooth the edges with your sleeve. Pretending you are merely realigning silk, not feelings. The pillow lies there, perfect again, untroubled. Or at least pretending to be. A bit like everyone else. The door slides open. The pillow fluffer arrives. She bows once too casually and gives you a brief nod that could mean anything from thanks to don't tell anyone you touched. That. You nod back. She adjusts the pillow. Slightly. Unnecessarily. Then bows again. Deeper this time, as if to correct her own casualness. Retroactively. You leave the room. The hallway light feels strange. Brighter somehow. Or maybe you're just more aware of everything. Your hands smell faintly of lotus starch and caution. You hold them behind your back as you walk, in case the scent tries to confess. Someone passes you and says nothing. Another passes and hums a half melody. Wonder what it would feel like? To sleep on a pillow without implications? To rest without it becoming someone else's metaphor. But you don't sleep. You fold. You fluff rarely. You walk. And tonight, you fluff the pillow with regret. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt too good to be right. Asterisk tonight. You've been asked to adjust the bed curtain. It's the outer layer. It's the one that hangs from the canopy like a mood that refuses to leave. Silk, dyed deep plum, weighted. At the corners with small brass charms shaped like phoenix feathers, not for decoration, for control. Each charm must fall precisely between the embroidered motifs on the inner wall panel. Symmetry, as always, is more than aesthetics.
Ow.
It's politics with thread. You slide the curtain into place with the handle of a feathered rod. You're not supposed to use your hands. Oils from your skin might upset the dye balance. Last week, someone's fingerprint turned a section slightly green. The bed had to be redressed. The noble reportedly woke up in a state of emotional fog. No one ever explained what that meant. You tug gently at the top corner. The silk resists, slightly as if it's asking whether you're worthy of this particular task. You are. You have been trained. You know the three folds: back, drop, and hover. You execute them without thinking, like a prayer repeated so often it's become muscle memory rather than belief. Maybe you thought curtains were for privacy. They're not. They're for signaling. A half-flowered curtain suggests the sleeper is at peace, fully closed, dreaming, parted slightly at the center, trouble, parted at the left, medical worry, right side, romantic unrest. Once, someone tied the curtains back on both sides and sparked a palace-wide debate about existential malaise. You adjust the edge slightly. One tassel swings out of line, its charm clinking softly, like a polite objection. You correct it. You step back. You inspect your own work like it belongs to someone else. The curtain hangs. Still, dramatic, perfect. You don't look at the person in the bed. They're already lying down, eyes closed, or pretending. Doesn't matter. You're a shadow now, nothing more. You bow to the curtain, you bow to the bed, you bow to the room, and then you leave, walking backward until you're past the door. It's tradition. Turning your back on someone's dreams is considered unlucky, or maybe just rude. Or maybe the two are the same thing here. Outside the air is cooler, your arms ache. Not from exertion, from restraint. Holding the rod, guiding the silk, measuring tension without showing it. There's a name for that kind of pain. You think it's called loyalty? But it might also just be fatigue. You glance back once. The curtain is settled. The mood is correct. The sleeper will wake feeling emotionally balanced. It's astrologically favored. And utterly unaware that a person with no name once corrected their brass charms by half. A thumb's width. You walk away. Curtains aren't about sleep. They're about the performance of rest. And you are the stagehand who must never be seen. The sun is nearly set, and you're still working. Technically, this is the last room. The western chamber assigned to a visiting noble whose name is long, whose titles are longer, and whose bedtime requirements are written in 4 separate hand scrolls. One of them includes a diagram of ideal moonlight intensity.
Ow.
No one can control the moon, but someone has angled the window screens anyway, just in case the stars are paying attention. The bed is already made. Of course, by someone earlier in the day, likely the senior team. Your task now is simple. Air the sheets, just briefly. Just enough to let the night in, which sounds poetic until you realize it means lifting 24 pounds of quilt with your arms held at shoulder height while not breathing on anything. You do it, because that's the job you lift. You fan the top layer gently, like you're trying to encourage a ghost to stretch. The air beneath smells like rose water, old lacquer. And a trace of arrogance? Not yours. The room's. You hold the position. Count to 12. Release. Maybe you thought the day would end once the bed was ready, but sleep here isn't a conclusion. It's another performance, one that begins when yours is supposed to be ending. You watch the light fade. The shadows inside the chamber stretch out across the tatami like tired dancers, trying not to touch each other. You adjust the corner of the sheet, not because it needs adjusting, because you need the action. You've been still too long. Consider the idea of lying down. Not here, of course. Not even in the linen quarters. But somewhere. Hey, just for a moment. On your back, arms folded, eyes half closed. You picture the sensation like a forbidden food, a warm rice cake you're never allowed to eat. Then you shake the thought. The way you fold the sheet back into place. You fluff the corner bolster. Twice, then stop. Because fluffing twice implies guilt. You smooth it once. You tuck the edge. You bow. You whisper goodnight. To no one. Because the person who will sleep here hasn't arrived yet. And even when they do, you won't see them. You'll be gone. It's folded elsewhere. In another hallway, straightening another curtain. Wondering how someone else's comfort became your entire occupation. The candle flickers behind you. You pinch it out. You step outside. The corridor is quiet now. Not silent. Quiet. The kind of quiet that understands exhaustion and chooses not to ask questions. You walk slowly, your shoes whispering against the wood. Someone ahead yawns. You envy them, because here, sleep happens to other people. You carry it, you prepare it. You layer it like lacquer, but it's not yours. It never is. Asterisk. It's the final duty of the night. Dream tiding. That's not what they call it. Officially, you're here to check final textile alignment, which is a glorified way of saying, make sure nothing looks like it's ever been touched. Despite the fact that it's about to be slept in, the folds must remain fresh. The sachets must look spontaneous. The edges must imply effortlessness, which takes enormous effort. You kneel beside the bedding one last time. The silk glows faintly in the lamplight, like it's pretending to be starlight. You know better. You're the one who straightened it 20 minutes ago. You're also the one who's about to straighten it again, 'cause perfection. There's a half-life in this building. The pillow is perfect. The quilt is silent. The curtain drapes in a way that suggests serenity and carefully prevents real intimacy. You smooth the sleeping mat one final time. Not with pressure, with presence. Just your hand hovering above the surface. A gesture that says, I acknowledge your slumber, without actually disturbing it. Maybe you thought dreams were random things, personal and private, but not here. Here. Dreams are prepared, shaped, arranged like bowls, at a formal table. No overlap, no confusion, no stray thoughts misaligned with the stars. The noble who sleeps here tonight is supposed to dream of ancestral grace, political clarity, and maybe, if they're lucky, a crane landing gently on a lake of their own wisdom. You tighten the perfume sachet string. It had loosened. Not much. Just enough to let the scent escape in an unplanned way. Retie it. Not because you care, because someone else might. You adjust the edge of the curtain, pulling it half an inch toward the north. North-facing folds are said to promote restraint. Tonight, the schedule says restraint. The candlelight dances on the walls. A breeze moves through the panel slats and pretends to be coincidence. You don't yawn, you do blink. Slowly, like someone trying to memorize the act of rest without experiencing it. You rise. You bow. You leave the room exactly as it was meant to be found, inhabited by sleep, but untouched by people, outside. Your own sleeping mat waits, thin, worn, folded in the shape of humility. You won't arrange it. You won't perfume it. You'll just lie down. Eventually, after everyone else has started dreaming, you walk down the corridor, steps silent, arms at your sides, carrying nothing but the weight of someone else's comfort. And behind you, the noble's room remains folded, fragrant, quiet, full of carefully prepared dreams that you'll never have. But you tidied them. That counts for something, doesn't it? It's asterisk, asterisk, and so the palace falls quiet, the bedding is folded, the lamp is steady. The corridors hold their breath once more. You've lit the path for someone else's dreams, straightened the corners of comfort you'll never touch, and bowed your way back into silence. Thank you for walking these slow, careful steps with me tonight. If your eyes are still open, may they now close. If your thoughts are still pacing, may they now pause. And if your dreams arrive, let them be soft, folded, and fragrant. And tonight, you are the one who must carry the basket once more.